Hello there, Parth Sharma this side, bringing you best chess games going all around the world. Do take time to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, then do press the bell icon for future notifications. And if you like my work, then do consider supporting me on Patreon and PayPal. You will find the links in the description because your support is my motivation, which keeps me going. And if you want to watch a specific game, I put a timestamps in the description box so you can jump straight onto the game that you want to watch. So Hikaru Nakamura yesterday forced set 3, so we are here for set 3 match between Liren and Hikaru Nakamura from Chessable Masters Quarterfinals, and the winner of this set will go through to the finals, I would say semi-finals. I got too much excited, pardon me. His first game was a draw. So we come to second game. Hikaru is white and Liren is black in this game. So Hikaru opens with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, the right rope is, knight f6, the Berlin defense, d3, bishop to c5, this is all very standard, d takes c6, castles, knight to d7, knight b d2, both sides castling, and knight to c4. This was the same line that Hikaru played against Ding in set 2, I would say set 1, and Ding Liren's basic strategy was to cramp Hikaru Nakamura by closing the structure. And why this was his plan? Because Hikaru Nakamura is so proficient in rapid play, or I would say in fast play chess, where he has 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or even in rapid play with 15 minutes and 30-minute games. So his Ding Liren's basic strategy was to cramp him, give him less options to contemplate while making his moves, and he did it successfully in set 1 with the same Berlin defense. Let's see what he does. Rook e8, all of the same. This is all very well known. Bishop to e3, bishop goes to b4. And if you want to, you can just kick that bishop off, but bishop can retreat back to f8. So knight f to d2. Now f6, there we go. Ding Liren again applying the very same strategy. c3, bishop to f8, there we go, we see that. Queen to c2, b6, d4, e takes d, c takes d, knight to b8. So now he has found a good option is to play knight to a6 and knight to b4, which we see very often the case when if a pawn is advanced and there is no c pawn. You often see one of the pieces, either a knight or a bishop, jumping onto the b4 square. And here Carlsen was spectating this game and he considered the move f4, but then again knight f6, and he thought after f5 it's white who would be dominating. But after knight b4, as I said, queen to c3, bishop b7 looks like biting on this pawn, but actually the idea is to play c5 and play bishop takes c5, or pawn takes c5 for that matter, to again solidify this knight even more on b4 square. So that could have been an idea, but here Nakamura goes for rook a to c1. So he is also looking to pressurize the c6 pawn. Ding plays knight to a6, rook f to d1, placing the rook opposite to the queen. Knight to b4. Ding is not, I would say, taken aback by those moves, such as rook f to d1, and then you have to react with the queen. He continues his plan and he has succeeded inputting this knight on b4. So queen to b1, the queen was hit. So queen takes a step back, bishop to e6. Now attacking the knight on c4, but it is just to develop the piece and to keep a pressure on this knight. b3, giving more protection to this knight. Queen to d7. Now this is a very interesting move by Ding. His intention is to play queen to f7 and put more pressure on the knight on c4, and in the case if this knight moves, then you might see even pressure built on b3 square, on the b3 pawn. So f3 by Hikaru, queen to f7, Ding Liren, and bishop to f2, rook e to d8, rook c3, and now his idea is to remove this knight so that this pawn stays protected after, let's say, b5 happens. So this knight has to leave that square. There we go, b5, knight to b2, rook a to b8, a takes b5, rook takes b5, knight b to c4, knight goes back to c4, and now a4, now undermining the protection of this knight. That's why rook c3 was played, to give protection to this pawn. And there aren't good choices here. Perhaps the best move would have been to play rook c to c1 in this position, and after, let's say, a takes b, queen takes b, this looks very deadly. Discover attack, placing your queen, but in fact this knight cannot move safely to attack, to give a discovery to this white queen, because the queen controls this a2 as well as this d3 square. So rook d b8, and after queen e3, black would have nothing better than to just repeat. Knight b4, rook will go back, and knight a2 will repeat the position. The game would end in a draw. However, in this position, he tries to attack c6 pawn by x-raying it, or I should say double x-raying it, and he plays rook d to c1. And now Ding finds a very interesting move, rook a8, and now his idea is not only just to capture this pawn, but also push this pawn down the board to create more chances, I would say more options to attack. And that's a very good move, rook to a8. B takes a4, rook takes a4 doesn't help actually, because it only makes life simpler, because now this knight is somewhat attacked, and if this knight moves, then you might see even this queen running very low on squares. Bishop a2 in fact could trap the queen on a1. That's the point. The queen is having no decent squares. It is only defended just because this knight is actually blocking the rook's path to b1. So plays rook a3, but now after knight a2, he thought that he might get two rooks for a queen. Let's say after rook takes a, rook takes b, rook takes b1, two rooks for a queen, and he forgot something. Knight c3 actually forks both rooks, and this is now lost. Rook and a minor piece for a queen is not a good enough option. So he plays queen to e8. Well, if he wants to, he can trade, but then white have some chances to hold the game, so he doesn't go for that instantly. Nakamura plays rook to a6, queen to c8 attacks the rook, and here Nakamura finally, I would say, does a final blunder. He takes the pawn on c6, and this is a terrible blunder because after bishop d7, this rook is actually trapped. It has no good squares to escape, and you will lose this rook for one of the pieces. He tries knight b6, some little bit of trick, but unfortunately queen b7 is actually threatening one of those pieces, and you are losing one of these pieces. So he's and if rook moves, then this knight drops. So knight takes, queen takes c6, and actually in this position he has two minor pieces for a queen, which is not enough, but there is still life in this. Hikaru Nakamura ensures that there might be some life left in the game, so it tries to create some some bit of fortress after knight takes f. He plays an in between queen c1 check, knight to f1, king takes f8, g4. So he's making sure that, let's say he would play a king g2 and these pieces would stay defended, and that's the main point. After g6, king to g2, there we go, f5, gf, gf, not girlfriend gf, it's g takes f5. Pardon me for that. Knight to g3. Anyway, let's not distract ourselves, take focus out. F takes e, knight takes e. So what Ding Liren is trying to do is to just simplify the position, but it already looks very hopeless. The only hope that Hikaru has in this position is to create some sort of a fortress, and if he manages to get rid of these two pawns without any harm, then there are chances that white can hold this. But it's not too easy, not at all easy. With queens on the board, there are chances for tactics. He plays h6 Ding, knight to g3. Now his idea is to play h5, and this would be protected by knight. Bishop protects this pawn, king protects this, no checks to the king, the knight is also safely guarded, and so is the bishop, and that could be a desirable fortress. But again, as I said, it's not too easy. King to e6, knight to e4, king to d5. So now his intention is to use this king to, let's say, attack these pawns. But again, as I said, it's not so easy. These are very well defended. So knight to g3, Hikaru would like to just keep shuffling. King to c4, h5, queen to g5, pinning the knight, bishop to g1, just having a move, king to d5, bishop to f2, king to e6, and now with this h5 pawn being advanced, still it's a good thing, but if this knight moves ever, then this pawn will actually fall, and although it's still a pin, you cannot take with the king because it is protected. Bishop to g1, queen to d2 check, bishop to f2, bishop has to block, queen to d3. So now if he manages to bring this king to this square, then white would have simply no chance. But again, as I said, it's not so easy. The only path that you can see is this, this, and this, and that could be the desirable path. And the question is, can this king be hampered in such a way that it doesn't reach this, this, and this? Well, unfortunately, the answer is no. He can play this, but anyway, it's white to move, so white plays knight to f1. When with this knight moving away from this square, now king makes use of this square to come to f4 and attack the pawn. King to f5, there we go, knight e3 check, king to g5, knight g4, and now king picks the pawn because the knight isn't defending that anymore, and now it's just a mop-up job after bishop e3, and I think the simple move would have been just to wait by playing c6 or to just play king g6, because two pieces are attacking, but it's already hopeless. He plays queen c3, he waits like this, and now the final blunder from Hikaru, king to f2, and this loses immediately. Maybe he could have tried d5, but king f2 loses immediately. As I said, king to h4, the king invades white space. Bishop takes h6, I'm afraid it's to no avail. Queen gobbles up the annoying d pawn. King to e2, king g3 puts white into somewhat in a sutswang. Bishop d2, he can play queen b2 and white will be in a total sutswang. Queen c4 check, king e3, queen b3 check. The pawn is attacked now, you cannot save the pawn. After king d4, c5 check is a very cute move. If king takes, then queen c2 check picks the bishop. That's the point. So king e4, and after queen takes f3, check. This knight cannot be saved. Hikaru Nakamura resigns the game. So after 2 games, Ding is a game up and Hikaru needs to strike back, but the problem is he has black pieces in game 3. So what happens there? Let's have a look. d4 by Ding. g6. Ding is white, Hikaru is black. c4, bishop g7, e4, d6, knight c3, knight to f6. This is King's Indian defense. Knight to f3, the Kazakh variation, but it simply transforms into the orthodox variation of King's Indian defense, where we see e5, castles, and you can play Ukraine defense as well. a5, that's the move that I prefer sometimes, or you can even play knight b to d7, and that is also not bad either, with the ideas of playing knight to c5 or to pawn break with c5 and so on. Knight to c6 is a move that Bobby Fischer used to play, and which is what Hikaru played in this game. d5, knight goes to e7, and now b4. So that's why we say sometimes you can play Ukraine defense, because you can stop this b4 advance. Knight goes to e8, so now basic thing is to, after a4, to play f5 and again restation that knight to f6, and white is advancing his queenside pawns with authority, whereas black is somewhat trying to initiate a counter-attacking sequence on the king's side, but it's still not too easy. The question is how will you be able to do it? Rook to e1, and here Hikaru played h6, but it was very interesting that he can actually take the pawn. He can take the pawn, but he didn't. He played h6, knight takes, f takes. Looks like black is a pawn up, but after knight to g5, black can simply give the pawn back by playing e3, bishop to e3, and knight f5, and the position looks still better for both colors without any fuss. And if you try to hold that pawn, let's say by playing bishop to f5, well, bishop g4 is an absolutely nasty move, and if you take, then queen takes, and how can you stop knight invading on e6? Let me show you. Let's say if you attack the knight, then knight comes to e6, bishop takes e6 check, not only gains a tempo, but also rook takes e4, gets the pawn back, but has superb attacking options in the position, something that you cannot afford when you have to keep the set alive, at least not to lose a game. So after rook to e1, plays h6, e takes f by Ding, bishop takes f, and now rook to a2. So again we see the same strategy being put, is to cramp Hikaru Nakamura, restrict the mobility of his pieces, and Ding Liren has been successful in doing so. He has neutralized somewhat Hikaru Nakamura, and we all know when there's a player who is proficient in speed chess, the only way to beat him or her is by restricting the mobility. And how can you do that? Is to close the position. You saw it in set 1 where he totally cramped Hikaru and won that game, and we are seeing it again. We saw it in the previous game that we just saw, and again we are watching it live in, I would say, right in front of our eyes. It's very interesting. What a tremendous game plan from Ding Liren this is. g5, h3, just not only just to give space but also to stop g4 things. Queen to e8, so basically he wants to play queen to g6 in this position. Knight to h2, there we go. a6, knight to g4, and let's say if you play either bishop takes g4 or knight takes g4, the same would happen. Let me show you. Bishop takes, knight takes, h takes. The same would happen if knight takes g4 was played first. and this is actually totally winning position, totally commanding position. The h file is wide open. Might even see knight to e4. Some sacrifice might land on g5 once this rook gets the h file, and you might even see queen c2 or queen h5, not h5 at queen h5, but queen c2 definitely, or queen d3 for that matter, and the position would actually crumble. But this didn't happen in the game. After knight to g4, Hikaru plays bishop to g6. Still a sensible move, not a bad move either. Positions so far, I would say it looks better for white here, but still black has decent chances. Ding simplifies the position by playing this, and now bishop to d3. Knight comes to f5, knight comes to e4. Now his idea is to exchange this bishop with knight. So bishop tucks back to g7, and why did I say so? Because this bishop in many cases is a very good defender of black king, especially in King's Indian and Grunfeld defenses. You have to play these kind of these kind of exchanges. You have to get rid of the dark square bishop. f3. Now this is a very strategical idea. After queen f7, rook to f2. So Ding brings this piece as well, utilizing it to its full potential, whereas this rook is somewhat a mere bystander in this position. And now this rook comes to d8. Bishop goes to b1, and now his main idea, if in case Hikaru exchanges this light square bishop, then this battery of queen c2 and queen d3 must be there to threaten h7. Anything landing on h7, that's the main point. That could happen. King h8, and now bishop to b2. So putting this bishop here to this king, right directly in front of this king, is a very essential move. And now suddenly these two bishops looking towards this king, black king, looks a very serious proposition. But at the moment this structure is somewhat closed. This king actually looks reasonably safe because of the presence of these two bishops towards the king. Knight comes to h4, b5, bishop to f5, and it is played to station this bishop, station this knight here. So b6 and knight to g6, g3 by Ding. So again trying to close this position, and if you get too greedy after bishop takes h3, I'm afraid this actually helps white. After rook to h2, if bishop retreats, you can take the pawn because the pawn cannot recapture because of the pin. So after g3, Nakamura doesn't take this. He plays pawn takes on b6. After a takes b6, knight to e7. His idea is to play knight c8 and to capture this pawn like that, because no other piece can come here to take this far advanced 6th rank white pawn. So bishop to a3, knight to c8, and now queen to b3 defends the pawn, and this pawn becomes a very useful commodity in this game. Bishop to h7, so tucking this bishop back so that this line can get open. Rook to d1, bishop to g8, and now there is a simple thing that might happen. Well, I thought that instead of bishop g8, if we had taken this, then pawn takes, or I should say not pawn takes, because that rook would get exposed. After bishop takes, things could land here. But he plays king to g2, bishop to h7. Now comes this main plan, c5, pawn takes, knight takes, and now if you let's say play this e4, well, now you can see the reason behind king to g2, that after e4 the pawn cannot take, that after bishop d4 this rook won't be pinned, and that's that was one thing. And another thing is to give space to this rook to come to h1, so that in future you can play h4 and to open lines. That's a I would say a long-term planning. Rook takes b1, which you have to do if you want to be a good chess player. Rook takes b1. Now rook f to e8. Well, actually you can take the pawn on d5, but it looks like that position is already lost in my opinion. Knight comes to e6, rook to d7, rook coming to c1, taking this open file. That's not all. You might see this rook jumping here and one other rook's landing here, or landing a punch at this knight on c8. Knight comes to e7, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and now rook to c7. And this is a very peculiar situation. If this rook is captured, then pawn takes, and then b5, rook c2. I think it's already over. The only way to defend promotion is rook c8, but then queen d3 is, I would say, totally crushing, because you are threatening to push this pawn as well. Obviously after knight takes bishop and then pushing the pawn on d6 would be too much to handle. So after rook c7, Nakamura plays queen to d6. So now he doubles the rook. Bishop to f6. I'm afraid this is all in vain. But after queen to a4, Hikaru resigns the game, and Liren wins set 3 and qualifies for the semi-finals. What a tremendous achievement this is. And there are things to see. If rook takes, then queen takes rook on e8 will be devastating. And what happens if you play rook d to e7? But then rook takes, and you are ready to jump in with rook c8. That would be the end. And let's say after rook takes e7, if rook doesn't take, let's say if queen takes, but then rook c7 actually wins the material, because the queen has to keep defending this rook, and this queen cannot go to a decent square. For instance, if it goes to d6, then the rook drops on e8, and that will be made shortly. So what a dominating win this is by Liren. And as I said, he progresses through, so congratulations to him for being another semi-finalist. And he will face probably Magnus Carlsen. I don't know the exact lineups, but the 4 semi-finalists are Magnus Carlsen, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Anish Giri, and Liren. So I hope you liked my video. I hope you liked my analysis. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.